came from, who believed in you and who didn't. This is our time. This is our chance to make a difference.
Remember, this is your world. You get to make and break the rules here. Sweet.
Come together.
Alright guys, so I saw Justice League, and I'm just gonna be completely honest, I do not know what to think about it, like 100%. I'm not too sure what my final thoughts on this movie are, so after I'm done recording this, I'm heading to the theater and I'm gonna watch Justice League a second time to confirm my thoughts on this movie, my final thoughts on this movie. So, yeah, I guess let's go to the theater again. Alright guys, so I watched Justice League not only once in Dolby, but twice, because again, I really needed to process this movie in my head, and I kind of wanted to watch it again with my parents this time to see what their reaction was to the movie. And so yeah, I could finally give out my final thoughts on the actual movie itself. So Justice League, it's finally here, the DC team-up movie that we have been waiting for. Everyone wanted this to be, of course, the Avengers of the DCEU. And, you know, the Justice League, it's, you know, the group between Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Cyborg, Aquaman, and, of course, Superman, which everyone already knows up to this point that Superman is in this movie. And basically, they're trying to stop the villain in the movie, Steppenwolf, before he takes over the world. If I'm being completely honest, like I'm supposed to be in these reviews, I was underwhelmed with Justice League, at least the first time, because I had my expectations so high. I expected so much out of this movie. I expected this to pretty much be the Avengers, which of course they're both different movies, but they're kind of similar. They're team-up movies, and I was a bit let down, and I just wanted more from this movie. And I wasn't the only one in my theater that thought that. The first time when I saw this movie, the people that were around me when I was walking out, they're like huge DC geeks, you could tell, and they're like, you know, I liked the movie, but I just think that it could have been better, and they could have put some more stuff in this movie to at least, you know, not only make the runtime a little bit more acceptable for a Justice League movie, but make the movie overall a little bit more better. This movie runs just about 2 hours long, exactly 2 hours long, and I have a problem with that runtime. Now, I'm gonna compare it to the Avengers with this, because they are kind of similar. Again, they're a team-up superhero movie, but one thing that the Avengers got right is that they set up their way to the Avengers movie. Of course, they had Thor's own movie, Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk. They introduced them all before they even released Avengers. And here with Justice League, really the only characters that we really know are Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. That's because they got their own movies. Well, not exactly Batman, but he was in Batman vs. Superman, and we really got to know a lot about Batman in that movie. But, you know, for a movie like this, especially when you're still going to introduce Aquaman, Cyborg, and the Flash for the very first time on the big screen for the DCEU, this movie should have been not 2 hours long, but at least 2 hours and a half long. Now, I'm not saying to exaggerate and make your movie 3 hours or 3 hours and a half long. No. I think 3 hours and a half could have been a perfect time to maybe introduce those characters that we don't really know that much about and kind of develop them a little bit more, because I felt like the introduction to the characters in this movie, again, as long as they weren't Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman, the introductions to the characters like Cyborg and Aquaman, they were like really rushed introductions. And you like, I know they're gonna somehow, I mean, I know the Flash is definitely, Aquaman's definitely getting its own solo movie, but the Flash and Cyborg, up to this point, I don't even know if we're getting their own movies. So I think that they should have had their own movies before Justice League even came out. And you could easily tell what is Zack Snyder's and what is Joss Whedon's in this movie. You know, Joss Whedon's is more of the lighter, you know, humor and all that, and Zack Snyder's is a little bit more of the, you know, stylized action stuff. Now, one of the biggest complaints for the DCEU have been that the movies are too dark, like Batman vs Superman. But they kind of, like, that wasn't a problem for me, really. I kind of liked the dark tone. But for Justice League, they kind of make it more, more of a lighter and more of a fun tone. So they kind of changed up the tone to the DCEU with this movie. And even though, again, I really do like the dark tone to the movies in the DCEU, I really appreciated the more lighter tone to Justice League. Now, every member of the Justice League here is really good. You know, Batman is badass, Wonder Woman's badass, Cyborg is really fun, same for Aquaman and The Flash. The Flash is probably the funnest character in this movie. I just loved all the characters in this movie, even though the introduction, again, some of the characters were very rushed. The characters are still very fun to watch. All together, they just all have such a great chemistry on screen. Now, Steppenwolf is the villain in this movie, and I think he's a very weak villain. I think he's maybe even the worst. No, actually, I just thought about Suicide Squad, and he is the second worst villain in the DCEU so far. I just feel like Steppenwolf, you know, he does have his backstory, but even with the tiny, you know, brief 2-minute thing about his backstory that they put in the movie, I still think he's a very underdeveloped villain, and I just found him, again, just to be a very weak villain overall. But to make everything much worse, the CGI on Steppenwolf it's pretty bad. He looks like he came out from a PS3 game, and yeah, he's not a good-looking CGI character. Steppenwolf isn't the only thing that is pretty bad about CGI. Just overall, like, this movie is a mix of some good CGI, but at the same time some bad CGI. And of course, Steppenwolf falls in the category of the bad CGI. But some of the green screen is very noticeable. You could tell by the green outlines around the characters. Justice League had so much potential to be one of the best comic book movies ever, and one of the best comic book movies of the year. I do think this is probably the weakest comic book movie we got this year, but that's not saying much because every comic book movie we got this year is really good. Justice League, it's really, it's a hit or miss for some people, but I really liked Justice League, even though it's a very flawed movie. I do think that they really did try to give their best, even though it could have been longer, and some of the characters were underdeveloped, and the villain was very weak and everything. But, you know, overall for my score for this movie, I was going to give this movie a B, but I think just because, well, the first time I saw it, I would have given this movie a B, but it was much better the second time around. It was more fun, much more fast-paced. The time went by very fast, so with the second time, this is my final score. I do think this is a full price worthy movie, and I'm going to give Justice League a B+. Anyways, I know many of you guys really like this movie, and I know many of you guys really did not like this movie, but you know, it's opinions, and not only that, but people are very mixed on this movie, and I understand why. But anyways, have you guys seen Justice League? If you guys seen it, what did you guys think about it? Tell me in the comment section down below. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.